Hello everybody! Today I'm going to show you 3 handy tips and 1 life hack which will help you save your time and money when removing and rebuilding the CV joints of a Jaguar X-type. In fact, I filmed this footage last summer when changing a CV joint boot of my Jaguar, and now I have just cut a video of some key points of these repairs. The matter is that I am awaiting of arrival of inlet manifold gaskets for my next video, and it's a good reason for you to subscribe to the channel, just to ring the bell so that not to miss it. And now let's begin. But before I start talking about tips, I just want to remind you about safety. I never rely on one jack only and put additional jack stands when working under the car. Besides, I put a removed wheel flatwise under my car. It will possibly save my health. I prefer to be on the safe side. So the very first tip is that I never forget to untighten the front axle nut before I start removing the wheel. I do it when the car is still on the ground, and pull it up and not press it down so that not to damage the seal, because I have already put a jack under the car. You see, I make use of a steel pipe about 1 meter long to extend my sliding T-handle. It will be very tricky to break free the axle nut when the car is lifted on the jack stands and half of the front suspension is taken apart. The second tip I would like to talk about will help you easily remove the lower control arm, the wishbone, without damaging the bushings. You will definitely need to remove or at least unfasten the wishbone before getting the drive shaft out of its place. I prefer to unfasten the bolts securing the bushings rather than press on the control arm, trying to pull the ball joint out of the hub. The matter is that Jaguar X-type is equipped with hydraulic rear bushings of front wishbones. That is, they are filled with a special fluid, damping road vibrations. If you press on the control arm too hard, the fluid can leak out of the bushing and it will be spoiled. I completely removed the bolt from where it sits and fed it from underneath, with the nut sitting on the top of it, so I can remove bolts securing both the control arm bushings and pull the wishbone a little bit from its place. At the same time, there is no need to unfasten the bolt joint, or at least it's up to you whether you will remove it or not. By the way, here you see a ripped CV boot and its grease leaking out. The main reason why I removed the CV axle and rebuilt it. You see, I tapped on the CV axle slightly with a small hammer and it slid out of the hub. The third tip is that I believe it's much easier to change the CV joint boot of a Jaguar X-type from the inner end of the drive shaft, because here is better access to the C-clip and you can remove the tripod part of the joint from the axle as well as both the boots, the inner and the outer, just sliding them off the drive shaft. By the way, the grease used in a tripod joint shouldn't be of a black molybdenum type used in outer CV joints. As far as I know, some of the French cars are equipped with tripod joints installed into the gearbox and greased with transmission fluid, though I wouldn't advise you to add good quality GL5 transmission oil into the tripod CV joints as I did. But before rebuilding CV joints, one has to remove the axle from the gearbox, and it is a good trick to do it, especially when it is stuck. No matter how hard I tried to pry it, it wouldn't pop out. I'm used to doing everything gently. I didn't want to damage a gearbox casing or anything else. Surely a slide hammer would come in handy, but as usual I hadn't got one, and I didn't mean getting it for the sake of removing one axle once in my life. So I found the following way out. I took an old belt, tied a kind of double loop around the inner CV joint cup, making a slip knot, and fastened the other end of the belt to the big iron hammer. I tightened the knot around the CV joint cup to pull up the slack of the belt and threaded the handle of the big iron hammer into the other end of the belt. I intended to make use of the inner CV joint boot in the future, so I wrapped it with rags, an old t-shirt in my case, to prevent it from possible damages during this hammer trick. Besides, I want to warn you that the gearbox fluid will leak as soon as you get the axle out, So take care of this matter. Either drain the oil in advance or put some white pen for the oil leaking through the axle hole. So when the big hammer was fastened to the inner CV joint cup and all the safety measures taken, I had just to give it a good tap and the axle was out.
Haven't you given me a thumb up yet? It's a good time to do it now.